Hi, I'm Peggy at Headshots by Peggy, and today I'm with Colleen Basis. She is an acting coach and teacher, and we're gonna have a lot of fun today. So, Colleen, first of all, tell us a little bit about you and how you started, in this wonderful journey that you're on.
Well, I started as an actor. I'm kind of one of those lifetime actors. I started when I was 9. And then went to college. I went to George Washington University in Washington, D.C., kept acting through college. And then I did a touring company for 2 years. It was classical.
Oh, fun.
Shakespeare, really great. And then I moved to New York to be an actor there. And I lived there for about 6 years. And I studied and did off-Broadway theater, and then came to LA about 15 years ago for warmer weather.
Nice, right? I was about to say that. Like, the one thing about New York is the winters. Like, you can't get around it.
You cannot. And I love New York. I think it's such an amazing city, especially if you really want to work on your craft. There are amazing teachers there. There are amazing teachers in Los Angeles too. But there really is something about doing theater and having that experience in New York that's just different than Los Angeles.
Yeah. Los Angeles has a lot of really cool theater companies, but they're still not.
Yeah, I think the culture here is a lot of people do theater because they love it, but also because it's a really important way to stay active and part of a community, which then helps you in your film and TV career. And I think in New York, there's just still a little bit of the element of we just do it because we love it.
Yeah.
And if it's just part of the passion of it. That here sometimes it's more purposeful. And the passion is there, but kind of with a little bit result oriented in it. But I also found that in New York, I wasn't getting the kind of film and TV opportunities that are in Los Angeles, because that's the town. This is the town for it.
This is the town for it.
So I was here for a long time as an actor, and then I transitioned into casting, and then I transitioned to coaching and teaching.
Wow. So you have like kind of the inside behind the curtain about casting, because I think that's like such a mystery to actors.
Totally.
It's like such a huge mystery. Actors are like, what can I do to, and it's so, something that I just realized recently is a lot of actors think that casting directors book them.
Yes, they do. And when you work in a casting office and when you and here's the thing too, I think there is a difference. A lot of actors will read or go and intern for casting offices with still the purpose of having that relationship. Right. It's a totally different experience when you are really committed to being there as a casting person, and you've really let go of
the acting.
Totally. And it is true that, casting people can be really persuasive, and part of their job is to be really persuasive about getting actors jobs, but ultimately, like, they have a boss too. Yeah. They're working for somebody too. And just like actors, they're hustling for their next job. Yeah. It's great. And like actors, it's so awesome when you in your office end up on like a TV show that's going to run like for 15 years. Like, awesome. Just like actors. Right. But eventually their jobs are going to end. They're going to cast the movie and they're going to move on. They're going to finish the season. They don't know if they're going to get picked up for another one. Yeah. And they're out there hustling too for their next job. So their relationships with producers, studios are really important.
Right. Yeah. So, casting directors' job is to give their clients a handful of every single one of these can do the job. Which one do you want, kind of thing?
Totally. Like, part of it is their taste and understanding the world they're casting, the taste of the producers, what's necessary to tell the story. But ultimately, it's usually a really small committee of people choosing. And if you've ever tried to make a decision as a committee, there's a lot of give and take. So the showrunner might like one actor, maybe the writer of the episode likes another actor, maybe the director has affinity for a different actor, and they have to kind of come together to do the best they can for this particular story.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something I know that gives actors a lot of stress. But they should ultimately, hey, they got an audition, go in and do your best and let that casting director know that hey, every time I call you in to read for me, you're on your A game.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it really is about building that relationship. And I know actors sometimes, like, if they've gone in 3 or 4 times for the same casting director, they think, oh God, I have to book this one, because they think the casting director is thinking that. But the casting director isn't thinking that. They're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I can call so-and-so in, because I know they're going to be great, and I know I'm going to give a great option to the producers, and it doesn't matter to them whether they book the job.
Right, because they did their job. They presented
Right.
a great.
Yeah,
somebody
they're
that
not
they knew.
thinking I've called in Colleen 4 times
Right.
and like, why hasn't she booked?
I think Merrick, it was like over 10 times. I can't remember the exact number for NCIS before he ever booked.
Yeah.
And it was like,
I know. Yeah.
and for
Hey,
some
10
reason,
yeah.
NCIS always auditions at 5 o'clock on a Friday night. What is that?
But every office is different,
But yeah, it was like, oh, a Friday night in traffic.
Yep. Here I go.
But, so just because you don't book doesn't mean you're not doing, it means you're doing your job because they love you and they keep calling you back in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes it also just takes a few times for you to sort of build up the trust with the casting people. If they don't know you at first, it's just like, it's like dating, or I guess any other business relationship.
Right.
Like maybe the first time, I'm trying to think of, the first time, you go to get your hair cut.
Right.
With somebody new, you're kind of like, and it's like on their end too, like they're trying to get to know you. And then by the 10th time, it's like, you have a language, when you're like, oh, can you just, and
do
they're
that
like,
thing.
yeah. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And I think that, it can be really helpful for actors to think about it that way, that you really are building a relationship. And that I think too, especially with theatrical casting, because that's really what I focus on in my work is theatrical auditions, theatrical acting. And that's the world I live in.
Yeah.
My husband is an actor.
So do you do a lot of coaching for auditions? Is that one of your main, would you say that's one of your main things or just one of your things?
No, I think it's probably, especially in, when I do private sessions, I think that's when most people feel like they want to make the investment in a one-on-one session. Although it's so interesting, I think it can be really helpful to do a few sessions one-on-one with a coach, whether it's me or somebody else, when you don't have an audition.
Right.
Because I think it's really important for, like everything, there's a relationship there. And you're not just running or worrying when the stakes are really high.
Right. Because when the stakes are high, it's hard, I would assume, as a coach to actually find how do you tell this story? How can I help you tell this story in your way? When there, it's like, we've got to do,
Yeah.
But if you already know that person, you've built that relationship, you understand, okay, this is their style. This is how they tell a story. So let's take what you have and, and put that into the script.
Yes, absolutely. And I think too, even doing headshots, like it's much different, I'm sure, when somebody comes to you with like breathing room versus like, oh my God, pilot season is tomorrow.
Can we get this? And I have to have the perfect headshot. And I get it. You have to have the perfect headshot.
Totally.
But that's part of having the perfect headshot is doing your work beforehand.
Yeah.
And, everybody that's been to me know I send out a questionnaire. I'm like, this is your chores a week before. The week before you see me, you have, assignments. You have to do your work. Because if you just show up and I don't know anything about you and you say, I want a great headshot. Well, what does that mean? Well, what role? What are we trying to portray? Well, I want a good theatrical. That's why I have the questionnaire, because I would get, well, I need a good theatrical and a good commercial. I'm like, well, yeah, everyone does. What does that mean to you? Like,
yeah.
Who are you?
That is such an
Yeah.
important thing. I think that actors really need to mine and cultivate, which is, who are you?
Who are you?
You know?
What's your story?
Yes.
How are you going to take who you are and put it into that script and make that script come to life?
Absolutely. And I think too, there is a difference in terms of, I think, in my opinion, for preparation in terms of like commercial auditions and theatrical auditions. And what I often find is that actors who are auditioning a lot commercially, sometimes when they get the theatrical audition, or their career starts to transition, they get a theatrical agent or they have a manager who's now getting them out. It's a much different process for an actor to prepare.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people who work a lot commercially may have more of a specific opinion about this, but sort of a general thing is when you go to commercial auditions, you're showing up and they're telling you what they want.
Right.
And I think with theatrical auditions, it's a different mind shift, which is you're showing up and telling them what you're going to do.
Right.
So if you're not prepared, specifically prepared, and you kind of go in with I think this is it, but I'm going to let them adjust me, you're not coming in with strong enough choices.
That's absolutely the vlog that I just did last week. I touched on this because when I was away doing set photography, I just was in this weird position where I was hanging out with the clients and I was listening to them talk about the actors. And I was like,
totally.
And I know that when Merrick got his script, we went over it like a dozen times before it clicked, like, oh, you know what? I think this is and I think a mistake that a lot of actors do is they read it and they're like, okay, I've got my lines. But it's different to because we went through it and we're like reading the notes and we're going through it and you're like, it's easy. It's not easy. It's easier when it's an episodic that you can go watch a few. Okay, I get the feel. I see what they're going for. But when this is it. Like these notes are all you have to go. You have to really, really chew on it for a while and savor it and think, what are they? Oh, I get it. Because sometimes it doesn't come to you when you first read it. Because when Merrick first started reading, it was like a whole different than by the time he was ready to audition. We were, it's like, he would say, and I go, you know what? I think this is what's happening. He'd go, oh, yeah, yeah. And he'd say, well, I think this is what's happening. Oh, yeah, yeah. And so you really got to spend time with it. And that's where having a coach to help you audition is probably, because you can put another set of eyes on it and say, this is how I see it. And be like, oh, okay, I get that. And,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, one of the things that I do as a coach, and I'm sort of constrained by the actors' time constraints too. Right. So if you're emailing me at 5 and saying, can we meet at 7 or can we meet at 9 tomorrow morning? I'm like you. It's like, all right, do I have time to watch an episode tonight?
Right.
Do I have time to get onto IMDb Pro, which every actor should have IMDb Pro. It's amazing. It is like the best tool. And it's a great tool for me because I'll go in, I'll look up the casting director. What do I know about the casting director? Have I had other clients go in? What was their experience like? The writers, the directors. And it sounds like a lot of time, but IMDb Pro, I'm like plugging them right now.
No one has ever said, I regret having IMDb Pro.
No, yeah. Because it's so fast. It's like in 5 minutes, you kind of just have a bigger picture. But also, I do my research too. If there's a script, I try to take the time to read it. I always say to actors, like, please send me all of the information you got.
Yeah.
The breakdown, any notes from casting, the sides, the script, because that information is gold.
Yeah.
It's gold. And if I don't have it, it's much harder for me to have the bigger picture. And then I print out my sides. I highlight my lines. I try to make sure that I know where the scene's taking place. You know, kind of have an idea of what's going on in the scene before we start.
Yeah.
All before they walk in the door.
Right.
I think that kind of, I'm really into preparation.
Uh-huh.
And I think theatrical preparation, this isn't always, but I do think actors often think that sort of a basic preparation of like, I know the lines is enough.
Right.
And it's really not enough. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I talk about, I teach a class as well, is making sure that your choices are strong enough that they can withstand whatever is going to come at you. Because you really have no idea what is going to happen when you walk into that room.
Yeah.
Yeah. In all the best possible ways and also all of the actor nightmare ways.
Right.
So if you make strong choices, if you really not just memorize the line, but memorize the scene.
Exactly. No, so you can live it.
That's right. And if you are really specific about it, and from your point of view, no matter what starts coming at you, no matter where your nerves are, no matter where your excitement level is, no matter, you know, if all of a sudden you're in the middle of a take and somebody's cell phone goes off, or they realize they didn't have the mic on, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know what? We just got it. You're doing great. We just got to do it again. It's like that one take wasn't precious.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't like I just waited all this time to do this one take. It's like, great, I'm going to do it again. Because on set,
guess what?
that's what you have to do. You know, it's very, you know, it varies on TV, but, you know, most of the time you're going to have to be able to like give it a few takes. Mm-hmm. And you have no idea what's going to happen on set either.
Yeah.
Somebody can drop a mic.
Right.
You know,
and they just may need it from different angles, so you just have to do it over and over. It's not anything went wrong. It's just
totally.
We got to get it from this side. Got to get one for safety.
That's right.
One more.
Yeah,
I think that's the
right.
director's favorite line.
Can we just do one more?
You're like, you just said that like 10 times.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Can we just do one more? Yes. So I am a big believer in preparation, specifically for theatrical auditions.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, that's, I think most actors, when they come to me, especially when they come into my class for the first time, I usually say, you know, just prepare like you would for an audition.
Yeah.
Just prepare like you would for an audition. Because I want to know.
How do they prepare for an audition?
That's right. I want to know, you know, if you get an audition, because I usually, my class is on Saturdays. Uh-huh. So on Wednesdays, I send out material. I want to know what you're going to come in with when I send you on Wednesday and you come in on Saturday.
Right.
And that means, you know, your other jobs, your family, taking care of yourself, having to juggle all of that.
Because that's literally an actor's life.
Yes. Yes.
Because 1 week you may have 13 auditions and not have another audition for 4 weeks.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
So I think that when you get that audition that comes in last minute, then your panic level, instead of being here, can be a little more here.
Yeah.
Because you have a process. And you also know how long it takes to prepare different length material for you specifically.
Because everyone is different.
Everybody is different. Some people memorize lines really easily. Some people don't. There's no difference to me in how successful you're going to be if you can memorize lines quickly or not quickly.
Right. You just have to find your process.
Totally. And for me, I think what's really important is that it really is an individual process. And that most actors, when they reach a certain level of creative and sort of business success, oftentimes they have a process.
Yeah.
They may not be able to articulate it, but if you start asking them about it, like, what do you do when you get a script? Well, I do this first, and then I do that. And everybody's a little bit
different.
For example, I'm an early person. It's really important to me to be early. When I'm late for things, my anxiety level skyrockets.
Midwest girl here, raised by dad that would, same way. I'm like freaking out. If it's a quarter till and I'm 5 minutes away, I'm like freaking out.
Totally. Totally. Other people are sort of a show up on time kind of person because they can't wait. If they sit in an audition waiting room, their anxiety starts to ramp up. And it's funny, I can even hear a little bit. I'm a little tight right now, so I'm trying to breathe. And I think what's really important is that there's no judgment on those two things. I mean, being on time is important.
Right.
Everybody knows that. But you have to know for you if 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early makes you feel better or if it makes you feel worse. And it doesn't matter what it means for other people.
Right.
It really doesn't. It only matters if you have to get to dinner at the same time.
Exactly.
Which is a whole other thing. But professionally, this is
Right.
your job. It's your job to know how you do your job. And if you can take from what other people do and it's useful for you, great. But if you're working with a coach, if you're working with a teacher, if you're working with another actor and you aren't digging, how they're telling you to do something, it's not working for you, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's really not a big deal. It's you finding what works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes people don't sit down and think about what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And that's where having a coach or having a questionnaire, it just makes you think about the things you're kind of doing anyway, but you have to kind of organize them in your head and go, oh, I did know this. I didn't know I knew it. But when I sat down and thought about it, I actually do know this. Okay.
Totally.
Just like you said, some successful people don't even realize they have a process, but when they stop and think, oh, yeah, every time I do this, and, and I go eat a bowl of chili or a bag of trail mix or whatever in between this, and that's, they have their little,
Totally.
their thing.
Totally. And I think too, for actors, one of the things that's also really important for me is that they enjoy that work. Because if you don't enjoy that part of the work, the before the audition, the getting ready for the audition before, and you're only doing it for the result of booking, it can make your career just, I think, harder on you emotionally because you're working for something that is really not in your control.
Exactly.
And to come back to the casting thing, like even for casting directors, sometimes who gets cast is not in their control.
Yeah.
And they're doing it because they love doing it. And they know they're really good at it and they enjoy the process. They enjoy the work of it and not because the actors they love always get picked.
Right.
And the same for actors is that if the reason you're doing the work, the reason you're an actor is all just for that adrenaline rush of the moment that you book, it's just harder. I mean, everybody gets successful in different ways, but I think finding joy in the process.
Well, auditioning is such a huge part of acting. And if you hate the hugest part of your job, it makes your job not as enjoyable. It makes you not be able to enjoy the wins.
Yes.
I mean, I often laugh, I hate editing. That's not it's not my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, we've been digital for over a decade now, well over a decade now. And, editing is part of my job. So I have to find something enjoyable about it.
That's right. That's right.
It's what I do.
Totally. And I think that, too, for actors, one thing that can be really challenging, and I always say this, which is that, uncertainty is your constant. It's really not a career that you go into for stability, for routine, and to have those things, you definitely have to put a lot of time and energy towards that. But I think that things are always changing. And, for me, I've been acting, for 25 years. And even over the past 10 years, the shift to self-tapes, It's so interesting now. I have, some actors that have been in the business for a long time, and I have some actors that are newer. And it's fascinating to me because the actors who have been in the business for a long time, negotiating that shift to self-tapes was so interesting because a lot of them, their process relies on the adrenaline of the room.
Right.
Of the showing up, of the getting there, of even the adrenaline of the uncertainty and not knowing what I'm kind of leaping and not knowing what's going to be on the other side of that door. And so for them, that transition into self-tapes is a challenge because they're not getting that adrenaline. They're not, and they're also much more in control of which take they're going to pick. Yeah. How many takes they're going to do.
Which is almost, for a lot of people, it's harder because they don't want to, that's something they don't want to be in control of, because then they're like, well, maybe I should have picked the other one. I didn't book it, didn't get a call back, and if I would have picked the other one, maybe I would have got a call. You can go forever in your head. I like Gary Vee. I listen to him a lot, and he says there is no wrong decision. Spend a few minutes on your decision, make it, and go on, because even if it appears to be the wrong decision, maybe if you would have got the right decision and booked that, you would have got hit by a bus. So you don't even know what, just own your decision and keep going. Like, you've got to, and an actor, probably over any other career, you have to just let it go and keep walking. You just got to be able to okay, that was fun. Now you put all of your energy, and then you have to just, that was the decision I made. We're done.
On to the next.
Yeah.
On to the next. And I think too, for actors that are now coming up in the business who are really used to self-tapes, one of the things that I've been finding is that they're now facing the challenge of then what happens when they get in the room.
Yeah.
Because they're used to doing their audition in a comfortable space where they feel safe.
They feel in control.
In control. They're working with a friend or a partner, somebody they feel really comfortable with. They can even control, just don't look at me. Can you just look down at the page, and I'm just going to do my thing. But then all of a sudden they're getting into a room with a casting director who, I'm going to do this for the close-up, does this. They read the line, and then they go like this. Because they want to see what you're doing.
Yeah, that's kind of their deal.
Yeah.
They want to see your reactions.
Right. And they're like, okay, I read my line. What are they doing? And when you're used to doing a self-tape, it's totally unnerving. Also because sometimes people, when they're doing self-tapes, are working with a friend who's an actor. And they're getting that really in the scene moment, that actor's there for them. And it's challenging in a casting room because casting directors really want to be the kind of reader like that. They really want to be there for you. They really want to be in the scene with you and be a great scene partner. But they're kind of doing 4 jobs at once.
Right.
So they're juggling a lot that doesn't have to do with the scene. And as an actor, because you're sensitive, you feel that.
Yeah.
And you think, is this not going well?
Right.
I'm not, the energy I'm getting back, they're saying the lines and they're saying it the way it's supposed to be said, but there's an energetic thing that's coming at them that can feel really unnerving. And that is where making really strong, specific choices helps you negotiate that difference in energy.
That's good advice right there.
Yeah.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
That is. So that's, I think, a lot of what I like to focus on.
Yeah.
And I'm big into specifics.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Colleen, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Really, it's been awesome. Make sure that you go take a class from her. Make sure you follow her all over social media. Follow me, and most importantly, have an amazing week. We'll see you next week.